I'm Thea Meyers, 28 years old, and the night my mother called me a freeloader in front of 50 well-dressed guests at her silver anniversary party was the night everything finally came full circle. Because when my stepfather followed it up by sneering, "We don't need your cheap gift, take it and get out," I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't defend myself the way I once would have. I simply smiled, opened the box in my hands, and calmly showed them what they had just rejected. And from that moment on, my phone never stopped ringing. But I learned something important that night. Closure doesn't come from explaining yourself to people who already decided you were worthless. It comes from walking away without carrying their shame anymore. And to understand why I stood there so calm while my past tried to humiliate me one last time, you have to go back 12 years to the day my world first broke apart. Because I was 16 when I got the phone call that changed everything. The call that told me my father, David Meyers, a construction engineer who never missed a school play, who worked overtime just to afford beach weekends and college visits, who kissed my forehead that Tuesday morning and promised we'd tour campuses when he got back, had died instantly in a crash caused by a truck driver who fell asleep at the wheel. And people kept telling me he didn't suffer, like that was supposed to soften the blow. But what hurt even more was watching my mother, Linda, accept condolences with rehearsed grace and dry eyes. Because within 2 weeks, she boxed up my father's entire life, his books, his tools, even the watch his own father gave him, without asking if I wanted a single thing. And I later learned why when I overheard her whispering excitedly on the phone that the insurance money had come through and she could finally start over, as if 16 years of marriage and a grieving daughter were just a rough draft she could discard. And what I didn't know yet was that she had already met Richard Thornton months before my father died, because 18 months later, I was standing in a strange suburban New Jersey house carrying one suitcase into a converted storage closet with a tiny window, while my mother explained she'd married Richard in a courthouse ceremony I wasn't even invited to, calling it just a formality. And in that 4-bedroom colonial with manicured lawns and a 2-car garage, Richard's son, Derek, got a spacious guest room and a brand new BMW for college, while I transferred schools mid-junior year and slept in what was basically a box. And when college acceptance letters came and I worked up the courage to ask my mother for help covering the remaining $8,000 a year my scholarship didn't cover, she cut me off without hesitation, telling me my father's insurance money was for rebuilding this family, that Derek's education abroad mattered more, and that I was almost 18 so I should learn independence, while Richard folded his newspaper and told me his house didn't support freeloaders, and that if I wanted a degree I should earn it like people in the real world. And in that moment, I understood with devastating clarity that I wasn't family anymore. I was an inconvenience tied to a past my mother wanted erased. And the night before graduation, lying under a water-stained ceiling doing impossible math, with no savings, no support, and an eviction deadline 3 weeks away, my phone buzzed with a Boston number I almost ignored. But when I answered and heard my Aunt Patricia, my father's sister, I felt my heart stop, because she told me my father had left something for me and had made her promise to give it to me only when I truly needed it. And that weekend, I lied about a study group and rode 6 hours by bus to Boston, where she handed me a small wooden box containing a savings passbook in my name, opened when I was 3, built slowly with overtime money, totaling $47,000, along with a letter in my father's handwriting telling me it was never my fault, that he believed in me, and that he had planned ahead because he didn't trust my mother to put me first. And for the first time since his funeral, I cried until my chest hurt. And when I returned home and admitted I'd seen Patricia, my mother turned cold. Richard told me my father was dead and that I'd be out after graduation. But this time I didn't beg, because I already had a plan. And on graduation day, I walked the stage alone, packed my entire life into 2 suitcases, left a note thanking them for showing me exactly who I could depend on, and boarded a one-way bus to New York, where a tiny studio apartment and a locked door became my first taste of freedom. And over the next 10 years, I worked harder than anyone ever knew, waitressing, freelancing, surviving on day-old pastries, never missing an assignment, building a portfolio, landing internships, earning promotions, opening my own interior design studio, keeping my success quiet, choosing privacy over validation, until the day a silver-embossed invitation arrived, inviting me to my mother's 15th anniversary party. And I knew immediately it wasn't about reconciliation, but desperation, because their money was drying up, their image was cracking, and they needed me back in the narrative. So I went not for them, but for myself, carrying a navy-wrapped box containing a key and a deed to a fully paid Manhattan apartment worth $450,000 that I'd earned dollar by dollar, a gift meant as a final chance for my mother to prove she could choose me. But instead, she laughed, mocked my presence, called me a failure, let Richard shove the box back at me, and tell me to leave. And that's when I opened it and told the truth in a room full of witnesses, revealing my career, my success, my father's letter, the lies she'd told for a decade, and the money she'd taken while claiming she had nothing for me. And when she tried to cry her way back into control, I closed the box and told her no, because love that only appears when money does isn't love. And I walked out lighter than I'd ever felt, silencing a phone that wouldn't stop ringing, choosing peace over revenge, giving the apartment to the aunt who saved me, building a family of my own with people who chose me freely, and finally understanding that my worth was never something my mother could give or take. Because the truth is, some parents are incapable of loving the way their children deserve, and that's not a reflection of the child's value, but of the parent's limitations. And if you're standing in a room right now being made to feel small by the people who should protect you, know this: you are not asking for too much. You're just asking the wrong people. And one day you'll walk away without needing their approval, carrying nothing but the certainty that you were always enough.